My question today is why? And in this case, why did Christy Martin go home if she believed her husband was going to kill her? We're going to get some insight because I've got some great guests and some great experts so we can all learn something here today. Joining me, in session correspondent Jean Casares is with us. Next to her is forensic and clinical psychologist Dr. Daniela Schreier. Criminal defense attorney Anita Kay joins us, as well as forensic psychologist Dr. Cheryl Arrett, and in session law enforcement analyst and contributor Mike Brooks. The experts are lined up. And let me start with you, Cheryl. Let's start with victims of domestic abuse. I know you deal with them regularly, and we see this, the inability to get away. They end up staying in these abusive relationships. Let's start with the big picture before we focus in on this case. Why? Explain to us the mentality and what happens to a victim and why they can't get out of that relationship.
Well, Vinnie, I think that this is one of the most misunderstood factors when outsiders look at a domestic violence situation. What happens in a domestic violence or intimate partner abuse situation is that the violence is used in a systematic way to establish and maintain power and control over the other person. And over time, the violence tends to escalate. It tends to happen more rapidly, very often until the victim is killed. And when people look at that and say, well, why do you stay in that situation? One of the things that they don't know is that statistically, a woman is at greatest risk of being murdered after she leaves. She's not safer when she leaves because one of the things that's the most common trigger for a lethal abuse incident is when the abuser feels that he is losing control of his victim and gets desperate. And that's when you see it escalate to a sort of, if I can't have you, no one can kind of mentality, and he responds with lethal violence.
And Dr. Daniela, Dr. Arrett makes a great point here, doesn't she? That it's about the psychology of the victim, but it's also about the psychological makeup of the abuser and what is going to trigger them to take even more drastic measures.
Absolutely. And now let's relate that to the case, Vinnie. As a matter of fact, we have here a man who is in his later 60s. That's already a decline and loss of power. He recently had open heart surgery. He deals with medical issues. And here is his very much younger wife, who all of a sudden comes or breaks free of a cocaine addiction. She also claimed that he would have supplied actually the drugs to her, which is interesting, right? What would be a better way to keep someone dependent on you? But he definitely feels a loss of power. She was also very bold. And so for me, this is not the typical DV situation. There's no typical situation, but she came forward and actually told him, look, I'm rekindling maybe a past affair or friendship with Cheryl, and I'm leaving for a couple of days. So she put herself at risk. She told him, and he noticed that she is breaking free from him. Now, coming back home was her choice. However, was there really a choice? Because she said, well, she was so entangled with him for over 20 years, emotionally, right, financially. And she's even stated her nature is, she said, I needed to go back to confront him. And she did so. And clearly he had felt that loss of power because she was slipping away from him. And that was the perfect opportunity. She was at home, even so she might have been physically stronger. He attacked.
Jean Casares, let's take a listen. Dr. Daniela, how about the Cheryl Lusk, who is Christy Martin's life partner now, and how about that aspect, how that impacted all of this? And would that, and I don't like using this word, but I'm trying to figure out another word to say it, but is that a triggering type of event here that would escalate all of this, Cheryl? I mean, Dr. Daniela.
Yes, I'm here, Vinnie. Sure, absolutely. Imagine you're coming home and then you're disclosing to your partner who is already jealous, who knows that he can't control you very well anymore at that point, and you're disclosing, right? I am returning to having an affair or a love affair. I'm leaving you for someone else. I'm leaving you for another man or woman. Even a partner generally who is not violent can be triggered by that. I've seen that in my practice, that all of a sudden they feel, oh my God, I can't lose her, and they hang on. And certainly this triggered James even more, in my opinion, to act out. But look also now, at Christie, she continues to stay on, not only, in my opinion, to protect her family, because great that she had contact with them, but she also wanted to protect that part of herself that she felt to the public was very vulnerable. She was a professional boxer. She wanted to protect her image. She didn't want people to know that she was dependent on drugs or cocaine, in her case. She didn't want to have people questioning her sexual identity. It's a very difficult transition, right, to come out, even if you're not in the limelight. And I think she had to fight with that too. And the last point here too, remember, this is a long-standing history or dependency. She met him in her early 20s. He was a very powerful man then, meaning he was a coach, a trainer, very much known in her environment. She was a newbie. So, and he didn't make it easy for her. Vinnie, he didn't take her on as his trainee ASAP. She said, well, he really gave me a challenge. He tried to have other boxers to break my ribs, so I wouldn't want to do it. And she actually, I think at that point, she was biting the hook. That's when the relationship started. And over a very brief time, actually, they become lovers and husband and wives. And possibly also her self-esteem is tied into that. And she feels also responsible for kind of him, because maybe she says, he made me partially, at least professionally, the woman who I am today.
Anita K., let me go to you.